Welcome to the Empower Ed Project.
How many people have seen this diagram floating around the special education world? The difference between integration and inclusion. There is a difference. So if you take a peek at the integration side, you see the circle, all of these dots, and in that corner, there's those 4 students that are integrating in. You see this in music class, in PE, in the cafeteria, where you have all of your students seated at the tables, they're eating their lunch, they're engaging with friends, and then there's that table in the back, right? We're inclusive because they're sitting in our cafeteria, but they're sitting in the back, and they're sitting with their staff members, and they're sitting with their peers who they've had to look at all day long. Integration model. Let's face it, that's schools today. That is where we're at. Are we providing some level of peer interaction? Sure, maybe. You know, for Danny, there are no friends, because that's what it looked like in our program. So he, cognizant that there are other peers around in the room, was still in an integration model. Imagine if he had been in an inclusive model, how deep that feeling and that need for acceptance and inclusion would have been. So here we are. Our goal is to move from that integration model to the inclusion model. Do you see any circles there? Students are with peers. They are in the center of the cafeteria. They are asked by their staff, where would you like to sit? What peers would you like to sit next to? Which one of your friends do you want to hang out with today? We are going to focus on moving from an integration model to a true inclusive model to be able to provide the life-enriching interactions that our students need. So let's talk why. Why are we doing this? Why is she droning on about integration and telling me that I'm doing it wrong in my art class? Well, here's why. 21% of individuals ages 3 to 21 have some array of diagnosis. This was as recent as 2 years ago. As of 2022, that number has a 1 in 44 chance of an autism classification, which is a 241% increase. These are our classrooms. This is what our classroom looks like today. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls to have an autism diagnosis. 40% of students with autism are nonverbal or nonvocal, and 44% have an average or above average intellectual ability. Take a minute to marinate in that fact. Our students in specialized programs, our students in self-contained classrooms, the students that are in an integration model, or even worse, a completely self-contained model. 44% have average or above average intellectual disability and may not be able to tell us. So estimated costs nationally are over $268 billion per year being devoted to the study of autism and severe disabilities. Why is this happening? What can we do about it? That's much more than other diseases and even mental health funding. We're pouring money, allocating resources. We're trying our hardest to provide programs that are meaningful for these students. Approximately 40% of children with autism also have at least one comorbid anxiety disorder. So not only am I working with autism, my brain is working differently than your brain, I also have 50% chance that I have ADHD. I have 66% chance that I don't sleep well at night. 50% chance that I'm struggling with obesity. And a 93% chance that I have some kind of GI diagnosis. So not only do I have anxiety, I'm not sleeping, I'm overweight, but I also have some kind of GI diagnosis that is hurting my life. Lastly, elevated risk for epilepsy. We see this mostly in the puberty years. These are our schools. This is what classrooms look like today. It's time to start programming for them, and it's time to program meaningfully for these opportunities. All right, so how do we do that? First, we are going to identify the barriers. We're going to talk about access, staffing, mindset, morale, staff training. That's better. Now you guys can hear me now. I don't have to be so loud. We're going to talk a little bit about academic and SEL programming, and curriculum that's used. So this is going to be our roadmap for our next conversation. I want you to talk with the people around you, people at home. Again, jot down notes, hop in the chat. Let's talk about the barriers. What are your barriers in your buildings for access? How are students able to access meaningful inclusion? What are your barriers for staffing? We all have them. This is the world we're working in. What are the barriers? How about mindset and morale? What are the barriers to your staff being able to accept this inclusive mindset? Staff training. What kind of staff training is needed? Not everybody can just pick this up on the fly. What kind of staff training is needed? And then take some time to talk about what curriculums, what academic programming you're offering students with complex needs, autism, or disabilities. Once again, another beautiful round of conversation. I even heard people sharing some success stories of how inclusion has worked in their buildings, their programs, and seeing the joy on your faces really tells me that this is important work, and this is why we're here to talk about it. So let's talk about some of those barriers. I'll address the elephant in the room, staffing. Education is in a huge staffing crisis. Can I get an amen? So finding the staff that is willing to dive into this extremely important but extremely difficult work is a nationwide problem. Do I think it's going away anytime soon? Absolutely not. So how do we address this barrier? How do we become the model to show people that this can be done? That you can work in this field. This can be achievable for your building, your district, right? What else? Someone share one of the barriers they discussed at their table. What are one of the barriers that you had to inclusion, whether it was in a school, whether it was in a school district? There's some administrators, there's lots of people here. What are some of the barriers that you have had in accessing inclusion?
We talked about how staffing is, in conjunction with staff training, is a problem. Not only are we, we're falling short of having teachers in the building, but they also don't have the training to deal with students who have some of these issues.
Absolutely. So not only is having the number of staff a problem in a building, but how do I get staff when I get them through my door? How do I train them to do this work? And it is a different kind of training. It's a different kind of mindset that you have to build in culture, that you have to build in your building for people to hop on board and say, I know there's one of me when there should be three of me, but I'm going to do this because this is what is meaningful to these students. Anybody else want to share a barrier to inclusion that they might have?
Mindset and morale, having the mindset to understand and having the morale to really want to take it on, to deal with, and be excited about it. A lot of times when it's faced, it's looked at like, oh, I got to go through this again. It's not I have to go through it again. It's like, hey, let's get through it. It's for the good of everybody, for me and for the kids. So the mindset has to be in the right place.
Absolutely. The mindset is huge. And I'm glad that you said that because that's absolutely where we're going to focus today is mindset. I wish that I could hit every single one of these topics, but then you guys would have to listen to me up here for hours. But for today, we really are going to hit on that mindset because it makes a huge difference. If I already don't have people that are coming into my building in droves to work with these students, I need to make sure that the morale that they have is positive. They're coming into my building happy. They know their mission and they are a champion for what we're doing. Awesome, awesome. So as we're talking